Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Sloppy Lab. This is Bottom of the Beaker, the weekly show about the design, the ducks, and the strategy of Keyforge. That's everyone, and I mean everyone. I do mean everyone. I really do mean everyone's favorite unique deck game. I am JT Russell, the speaker of the laboratory, indeed. And gosh, I was talking with my co-host tonight just before we got on. We realized we hadn't done this together in a little while. And I was like, what have you been up to, man? He goes, well, I've taken up this new hobby of sketching that like tender bit of flesh right underneath the fingernail. You know the one I mean? Well, if you know, you know. Maybe he'll tell us more about that this evening. I am, of course, talking about Quick Draw 3457 to be precise. How are we doing this evening, Quick Draw?
I'm pretty good, and I have no idea what you're referring to. So if anyone asks, I don't know.
Playing coy. I like it. We like it when you play coy around the lab, Quick Draw.
It has been 3 weeks since I've been here in the studio, and it's good to be back.
Yeah. Travels and tribulations, trials and tribulations with travels in the mix as well.
Yeah, all of the
Holy
above.
moly. Yeah, we got hit by a burst of illnesses and then like travel shenanigans, and we missed you last week talking to Astron. Great episode. Always great
Yeah,
when we have Astron on, but we missed you for that discussion for sure. For sure.
I was tuning in. Believe it or not, I went to New Orleans and I got stuck in 8 inches of snow. I don't know how many people can ever say that, but I can say that with like full honesty. So I did get to listen in last week to you guys, and Ashron, of course, always an amazing guest. So really happy that you guys were able to fill my shoes last week and keep the entertainment coming.
Right on, right on. Uh, for this evening, though, I have a question for you, Quick Draw. Um, there, Dark Amber, DARK. Do you know why it's spelled with a K, Quick Draw?
No, tell me why.
Because you can't see in the dark, my man. And this evening we are talking about playing decks with low C. See what I did there? Yeah.
I do.
All right, we're stretching a
Oh,
little
this is
bit.
flashbacks to my evil twin that popped up on TCO a couple of years ago. Quick draw without the C. Remember that?
Oh, you have a quick draw without the C.
Yeah,
QUIK draw. Very nice.
yeah. They don't play with C either. So hopefully they're listening. This will be a good episode for them.
There you go. I forgot about that. I haven't seen many quick draw impersonators floating around lately, though I have seen some very fun alt names on TCO. You know, you log in, you're like, okay, this is somebody practicing Good. I saw Good, and I was like, Good's playing against someone named Deug. Oh, I get it. You know,
Yeah,
like,
that's a good one. My personal favorites are Toot and Carnage and Test and Carnage.
Test and Carnage. Yeah, very good. You folks,
That's a good one.
you don't think we see, but we see these things happen,
Oh yeah.
and I like
I
your
mean,
style.
they're not hiding. They're all out there. There are
Absolutely.
some other ones that are trying to hide, and I won't out them. They don't always hide very well, but they're still funny to like. You see some friends who are testing under their alt, and you see who they are, and you see who they're playing against. You know both of them, but you know
Mhm.
that one of them doesn't know who the other one is. That's
Yeah.
always fun.
Yeah. JDG, yeah, we'll keep the veil of secrecy. Has a great alternate test account, very secret alternate test account, who folks have likely played against. So you can only block so many different names. They'll get you eventually.
JDG's. Anytime if you're playing against someone and you don't recognize the name and you think it looks like an alt and the deck is just horrible to play against and you just are having a miserable time, it's probably JDG's test account.
Especially if they say, thinking.
That's the dead giveaway right
That's a
there.
giveaway.
Um, I was playing a game with him yesterday. This is hilarious. So he always does his signature thinking,
Hmm.
and has a very like long, like well executed turn, super like deep, like well thought out.
Yeah.
And I was playing against him yesterday, and he puts in the thinking at the start of the turn, and then he's thinking for like 30 seconds or so, and then he just ends the turn and goes straight to me. And he said all that thinking for nothing, and he just literally wanted to pass his turn. He strategically did it. I know he had good reasons for it. It was just really funny to see that.
Yeah. So in a lot of games, I don't know if you'd say this is a lot of games, but in squash, I'd say in a lot of different pursuits, the ultimate, secret to deception is not spending lots of energy to do something, really tricky and you fake your opponent out. It's you make all of your actions look the same, right? So whether I'm gonna like hit this way or that way, my approach should look the same. My footwork should look the same, so that I'm not telegraphing as I'm like stepping up to hit a ball or what have you. And so, where am I going with this? Well, now no matter what JDG is going to do, he has to lead with the thinking so that he's not giving away information. Like, it's
Yeah.
kind of a
Kind of like how some other people pause at the end of their turn when they have no real actions left and they just sit there for a second to think, even though they've got literally nothing to do.
Oh, I love
Um,
that. That's my favorite bluff. I know
it's a
you're
good
poking
one.
fun at me, but when I have
I actually was
TMT
poking
me,
fun at someone else, but
interesting. Well, I do love doing that.
yeah,
Absolutely
yeah.
love doing that. That long pause. Should I play this card? Should I pass the turn? Should I discard it? And they're like, oh, they must have a card of the active house that they decided to hold. And there's usually like
hmm
one obvious choice. But uh, anyway, uh, we have
Well,
already
you
digressed and hardly
mentioned.
begun.
Well, I'm going to tie it all together right now because you talked about how in squash you have to kind of like disguise your shots and make it kind of make sure your opponent doesn't know what's coming. And I think that's very apt in this discussion of playing decks with low C because when you have low C, your opponent knows that. Your opponent knows if you're playing an Archon game, they know like what your options are. And you have to kind of handle their board and their creatures in a way to make it look
Mm,
seamless and not desperate. And if you make it look desperate, like you take a turn just to play like or just to like call a house and fight, you're really showing that you don't have the C in the other houses. And you're kind of telegraphing that play of being like, yeah, like I just have to call this house just so I can fight off your witch, and then that's my entire turn. You're really showing them like, okay, they've got no other C in hand, and it's a good opportunity to flood the board. So we're going to talk about playing decks with low C tonight, kind of how to better play with those decks. And I think this is particularly timely because there's been some discussions a lot recently about the two most recent expansions, Ember Skies and Tokens of Change, having a very small amount of creature control in these decks on average. So that's why we chose this one for tonight. And I think we're going to start JT looking at some data that we were kind of looking at today to see if that actually is true, right? Like
hmm
it feels like these two sets have very little C. So, like, what is the actual arc data going by the decks of Keyforge creature control stat look like for these?
Totally. And I've got up on screen right now. Folks don't go there often. dexofkeyforge.com/stats/arc-stats. You can see a bunch of splits of arc stats based on expansion, and then breakdowns from there. I've got just up on screen, a split of expansion stacked bars of the different components of an arc score. Uh, and this green band, folks who are listening are saying, "Okay, yeah, thanks, JT, the green band." But if you're watching on stream with us, and green is a thing you see, then you're going to see this green band right through the middle of the stacked bars. That is the creature control for each of the respective sets on average, right? And you mentioned quick draw. I hadn't thought too deeply about this chart before. That this is not weighted for rarity at all, right? This is just kind of like look at all the cards in the set. What's the average creature control score? A few things jump out to you immediately. You've got some things on the high end, right? Grim Reminders and VM24 coming in at 0.38 each. And then on the low end, you've got Worlds Collide, DT at 0.29. And then even below that, Tokens of Change, 0.26. 0.26, I think that's the lowest average creature control for a given set as reported by Decks of Keyforge, which is interesting. So that part at least
Mhm.
fits with what folks have been saying about Tokens of Change / Amber Skies being a little low. Though, interestingly enough, Amber Skies is kind of right in the mix with some of these other sets.
Yeah, so like you said, this is just looking at the average card arc or like the total card arc. Doesn't matter about rarity. So like you could have a lot of rares that skew this, but no matter which way you look at this data, you're right. Tokens of Change is very low in the creature control category. So um, like the average, the table that you're showing here from Decks of Keyforge, it's the lowest. But we also decided to put some numbers together and sort it by rarity as well. So as we all know, common cards make up the vast majority of your deck's identity and the components. So we thought let's look at the creature control at the common rarity and see how this breaks down by set as well. And Tokens of Change is a major outlier at the bottom for the common rarity creature control as well. It's just below Dark Tidings, but then Worlds Collide it comes in third from the bottom. Call of the Archons, but at the very top is kind of a surprise. So Vault Master 2024 is the number one. At common rarity, it has an average of 0.29 C per common. But number two, interestingly, is Amber Skies. So at the common rarity, Amber Skies actually has the second most C of any set, which I thought was really interesting because I have so many Amber Skies decks that I like, but they're like, oh man, this has really low C. Like, this set it doesn't feel like it has as much C.
Hmm.
Also, kind of interesting to think about is that Amber Skies and Tokens of Change have a much smaller unique card count.
Mm-hmm.
So when we look at these averages, Amber Skies has 84 unique commons. Every other set has like around 112, except for Tokens of Change, which has around 85 as well. So like it does skew things when you see like triple kaboom. It's more common to get duplicates in these two sets than it is any others. But this kind of calculation here we did does not take into account duplicates like that. It's just common rarity. So, were you as surprised as me to see Ember Skies that high?
I was surprised. I mean, I think listening to the water cooler talk, right? The water cooler talk, folks will often say that Amber Guys feels low, and I say that kind of resonates with me. Certainly, some of my favorite decks, Amber Skies, don't feel like they have as much creature control as some of my others from favorites and other sets. So I was a little bit surprised to see it, and we thought about it a little bit. Actually, ended up breaking it out by house, trying to get a sense for what would be going on here. I put on, no surprise, what
Hey,
would be.
JT, sorry,
Yeah.
I got to cut you off because your audio is not coming through to me at all.
Oh no. Oh no.
It is very scratchy and inaudible. I'm not sure if anyone in the Twitch chat can hear that as well, but you might want to check out your mic because it is not clear. Check a connection maybe or something like that.
Oh, I don't know. Anybody in the chat? Please see if they can hear me. Looks okay on that. Same here coming through scratchy. Way up there. Mm.
We'll take a break. We're not going to go anywhere, but maybe you should try to see if you can troubleshoot a bit. Um,
Interesting. I don't know. Error on the
I
recording
lost
session.
your connection entirely now.
Yeah, let me give this a refresh. Sorry, folks. Hang in there. Boop, 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 boop.
Staying sloppy, everybody.
Yeah, right on. All right, I'm gonna refresh Zencaster here, see if it'll.
We usually have these issues before the show
Nice.
and get it worked out, but I still cannot hear you.
You can't hear me at all.
No, I
Nothing.
can't hear you at all now.
Ooh. Okay. Give me one
And the
sec.
Zencaster recording finished. Did you know that? Okay.
Yeah, I'm just downloading those to make sure I've got them, and then I'll give it a refresh. All right. Funky.
Do you think it's possible that DataForge streams sabotaged your mic so that everybody could go watch DataForge streams match right now? I think that might be what's going on.
If it wasn't Zoc, then it was probably Riku. All right, refreshing this one. Bum, 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 bum. Sounds better now? Interesting.
Yeah, I can hear you now, and it sounds better.
Funky. Well, keeping it fresh, keeping it exciting. What can I say? We'll see if that piece of the recording comes out clean on Zencaster. I'm going to start a new one. It's going to probably boot you again. Quick draw here. Boop, 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 boop. Coming back online. And with any luck, here we are.
Yeah, I think it's okay.
Okay. Starting the recording again. This is how you know it's live. Maybe we stage this whole thing just to just to keep people guessing.
I just I feel bad for the audio producer who's got to fix all this stuff after the fact, just making his job harder.
you know, uh, God bless him.
Or her. Maybe it's your wife. I don't
No, it's me.
know. All right. Well, some technical difficulty. Sorry, everybody. I thought I would. I was trying to be polite and not interrupt you, but I was like, no one can hear you anyway. So I don't
Yeah.
know.
So I'll be curious. I'll be curious to look at the recording and see if it came out clean. That's supposed to be the magic of Zencaster, like the local
Yeah,
recording.
it'll be. We did it
Um,
for science.
this was an experiment. Exactly.
Yes, intentional experiment. So let's jump back in. So we were talking about the average creature control by rarity. So we looked at the commons, and as we said, Amber Skies, second highest. Does that surprise you that Amber Skies is the second highest average common creature control?
Uh, yeah, it surprises me based on my own experience with my favorite Amber Skies decks, and also just from what I hear folks saying about the set generally. Um, and yeah, we were curious kind of why that might be or what was going on between what's the disparity between what's we're finding with the numbers versus what folks are saying. And kind of our next step then was to break it out by house, right? Break it out by house and see if there's any kind of uh, any kind of light shed on the mystery there. And that actually was a little telling, I thought, quick draw. Turns out that Equidon comes up pretty strong in terms of creature control at common, right? A hefty zero point 0.5 on average. And you're getting your de-escalations there, really driving things up. I think there are some creatures with, reap abilities that are kind of driving things up too. But de-escalation, absolutely a big hitter. The real story though I think is for Geistoid and Logos, both very low, 0.08 for Geistoid, 0.125 for Logos. And as I think of some of my favorite decks, the things that I've gravitated towards just in terms of raw power level, like ability to punch hard, it's often featuring at least one, if not both of those houses. And so we might say that, yeah, on average, the card pool is has a lot of C in it, but the decks that folks are playing may not, right?
Hmm. Yeah, it was a really good observation for you to break it down by house because Geistoid and Logos, two of the most popular houses, for their efficiency. This game is definitely a game of efficiency, and these two houses provide the most of it. So it's no surprise, like you said, that decks are feeling a lot lower in C this set because people like to play Geistoid and Logos. And when you do, there's no board wipe between those two houses in this set. You have some targeted C, but it's often like smaller pings. You have like all hands on deck, which can destroy a creature, but then you have stuff like placeholder that just deals two
Mm-hmm.
damage to a creature. You have stuff like root access, which sometimes might deal two damage to a few creatures. So there's all this like small ball that's sometimes random and sometimes it's not always going to work. Connect home transfer only affects flanks, so that can be easily avoided. So yeah, I think it's no surprise that we feel that, and I did the same thing as you. Like I looked at my favorite decks from this set, and most of them are Logo Skystoid, or at least one of those two. And those are also decks that I'm like, how do I deal with 5C, right? Like,
Yeah.
can I make it work?
Also rewarding too, right? I mean, there's something rewarding about playing a deck that doesn't feature a board control, a board wipe, as it were, and just saying like, yeah, I'm gonna make it work, but I know I'm gonna have to work for it. I know there's not just like the one button I can hit to get back in, and that's absolutely a skill to hone. Playing those sorts of decks. I know a bit of a tangent maybe, but you've often said that you enjoy bringing decks with less creature control in an adaptive setting because one, you have to manage your resources in ways that folks may not be so used to doing, right? If they're used to bringing decks where that's not really a hole, then you just play much differently. Uh, and yeah, it just asks you to kind of manage things differently, set things up differently than folks might be used to. Yeah.
Yeah, and the decks that I bring for adaptive are generally like in the 5 to 7 C range, but they also tend to have one or two board wipes, and that's like pretty much it. Outside of that, you're fighting, and so it's one of those. They're usually those types of decks that have like you describe these as different flavors of low C. Like
Mm.
you could have this low C deck where it has like a board wipe than like almost nothing else. Or you could have a deck with low C that is like just maybe 6 cards that deal like a little ping damage, and that's pretty much it. So they're different types of low C. Like not every single deck with a 5C on decks of Keyforge is the same. They're not all created equal. They have different these different flavors require you to play them differently and to hold cards differently. Control the witches differently, fight differently, and so um, I do think, like you said, people are less comfortable playing with low C decks.
Hmm.
Definitely less comfortable than they are playing with low Amber control decks. And I think that's why we wanted to talk about this, to try to give some insights on how we handle these types of decks in hopes of people being able to kind of give a second eye to some decks that have low C, right?
Yeah. So are there other flavors that you'd consider? So I definitely consider decks without board wipes being a thing. There are decks with very little spot removal, so maybe you have a few board wipes in there, but that's kind of all your board controls concentrated into these wipes. So you can have an answer for your opponent, deploying 6 creatures of the same house, and you need a reset. Like great, but you also feel a little bit like using a gateway to disc to deal with a dusk witch and taking 3 chains every time that happens, right? These are kind of different flavors. I think another category that we could consider is decks that are relying solely on damage to deal with threats, and that's often great. It's often enough, but you have to be conscious of the fact that, like you were saying, Quick Draw, Deosilus, like is just gonna stick and sit there, right? Like Thing from the Deep is gonna sit there. A creature with hollow camo, it's not going anywhere. It hits the board and it's just going to be around for the rest of the game. So even if your deck is showing, 12, 16C, it may have holes in it based on like the flavors of C that it's bringing. Yeah.
Hmm. And bounce being another big one too. Like if you're up against one of those infamous Worlds Collide decks with the Ludo and the Scutum, and you have no bounce, you just have to assume that all of your captured and exalted amber that game is just disappearing. There's nothing you can do about it, especially if you can't handle the Ludo, right? So the type of C is very important to how you play it. Totally. Um, I think the one thing in common with all of these low C decks to me is you have to be able to fight smarter, not harder. You're not just going to
Mm,
always fight. You want to fight more strategically and at the right times and recognize when should I reap and when should I fight. Like even if it's a witch of the eye, like sometimes you got to fight with your own witch if it's the right case. And I think people are often uncomfortable with those kind of moves. Like to kill your own witch or to damage your own witch when you could have like some really nice reap effect that comes along with it, something like that. Some things that I like to do this, to fight smarter, is really about managing the different houses in your opponent's board. And I believe Astron, on one of his many appearances on the show, has talked about this before, where if you see that your opponent has played like most of their untamed cards, for example, and they don't really have any impactful cards in their discard pile for that Witch of the Eye, maybe you don't fight that witch. Maybe you fight something different. Maybe you try to fight their cards in a way to force them towards a house call that you're comfortable with them taking. Maybe you fight a certain house to kind of bring them down to 2 creatures to dissuade them from calling that house again. And maybe they want to just like call a different house and play 4 cards instead. That isn't really widening their board too much. And a single fight like that against, say, like let's say they have Brobnar and they've got 3 Brobnar creatures out, and you're able to fight and kill one of them, and you know that they don't have a ton of Brobnar left in their hand, but if you leave them with 3 Brobnar cards, they're going to reap out, maybe play 1 Brobnar card from their hand. But if you fight off one of those Brobnar cards, you're kind of like not letting their board get too wide, and you're kind of forcing them to go somewhere else to give you another turn to handle the board. So um, I think it's about understanding what your opponent's game plan is. I think it was probably the empathy episode, now that I talk about this, that Astron talked about. What is your opponent's plan? Which creatures can you afford to leave out there? And I think that's really relevant here as well.
totally. Totally. And, speaking of Astron, a big fan of handcrafting, having awareness of the next wave that's likely coming is very important when you're trying to maximize the effectiveness of, say, your one board wipe, right? Like, okay, maybe my opponent has 4 or 5 creatures of one house. I'm sitting on a board wipe. Can I spend some? Can I, make a fight, leave them with 3, and all of a sudden, it's maybe not looking so appealing to them to just kind of sit on that 3 creature board for the rest of the game. They're going to have to deploy the like six card Sanctum hand that they've been sitting on waiting for me to deal with their board, and then I get to play my board wipe, right? So you don't want to find yourself in a situation where you you let go your one arrow too early and then get caught with your pants down for sure.
Yeah, exactly. So you want to try to force out that large sanctum board in that case before you play your board wipe. So do what you can to dissuade them from calling those other houses, to make them go into sanctum and just drop all those creatures so you can wipe them. It's almost like a time walk. If they spend one turn playing like five creatures and then you hold your board wipe and you just play it the next turn, it's almost like they didn't even have a turn,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Totally, totally. Yeah. So I don't know. I kind of think of two broad categories of ways for dealing with having low C in your own deck, right? You're either trying to use your creatures to supplement, or some other function of your deck, features of your deck, to supplement for the fact that you have low C, and have it sort of pinch hit for your creature control, right? So maybe you're looking for creatures for fighting. Maybe you're going to be stunning things with actions or what have you. What, priest? No, not priest. I forget. What was the
The
action?
there's a if there's an action exhaust, it's not
Hmm.
an action stun. The unfathomable token. Is that what you mean?
Maybe that seems weak. That must have been a better example I was thinking
It
of.
sure is
It
weak.
sure is weak. Yeah. But oh, man, where was I going with that? Anyway, yeah. So creatures. This is one way you can supplement having low C, right? You get your own creatures on the board. You establish a board, and now you're fighting. Great. And this is you kind of converting one of your other resources, right? Your potential to reap into board control, creature control, right? And then the other way. So you kind of say, no, you know what? Never mind. I'm not going to worry about patching this hole. I'm just going to win faster. I'm just going to win before you are able to take advantage of having a board advantage, and that might look like jamming a lot of pips. It might also look like I'm going to be packing my TMTPs and redline rotations so that, yeah, maybe you're going to get to reap, but I'm going to negate a lot of that benefit so that you've effectively lost the efficacy of having this big
Mhm.
board, right? Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, we have to remember that this is the point of the game is not to kill all your opponent's creatures. The point of the game is to forge three keys before they do.
Mm-hmm.
So, if you're playing a rushy deck, you can sometimes afford to not have very much creature control, especially if most of your rushiness comes from actions and pips. Um, if you're a deck that relies on having a board, and you don't have a lot of creature control, then it gets a little trickier because you have to make sure your board can stick. So, one thing that I find a lot playing in Kagi games, if I always play low C decks in Kagi, and if my opponent also plays a low C, um, a lot of the games come down to who can establish the board first. Because if you can put the board out there first and you know that they can't wipe you, they're going to play a few creatures. You fight them off strategically to keep your own board alive. And it really just kind of snowballs during the game, especially if you have a couple creatures with skirmish, for example.
Mm-hmm.
If you're not just trading, if you're like a one sided trade there, um, it's really important in a low C mirror match to be the first person to establish that board and to use it well, to fight with it, to keep their board down. Um, but you like you had said, you mentioned a TMTP. Like scaling amber control is certainly it's not a type of creature control, but it does mitigate the your inability to remove their board. If you're playing against a tokens deck and they have a wide board of six tokens and a bunch of other creatures in that house, and they know that you have like a rant arrive or a redline rotation, they're not going to reap with every one of those creatures. Or maybe with rant and arrive they would, but like if you have a TMTP or a redline, they're not going to. Or like the rant and arrive at least mitigates the value of them reaping that high. And so if you end up in a situation where like your opponent's playing around the scaling amber control and they have nine creatures on the board, but they only reap four times because they're afraid of it, like you're essentially handling five creatures just by having that scaling hammer control in your deck, whether or not it's in your hand or not. You are forcing your opponent to not use their board in a way that they otherwise would use. So there are certain aspects of decks that might have low C, but they have other things working in their favor to kind of mitigate that weakness.
Mm-hmm. As you were talking through that, I was reminded very strongly of Aurora's deck, or the deck that Aurora has made famous, Natural Philosopher Bazi Toth. No TMTP in there, but the Glorious View gets to punish opponents getting way ahead on board. So you catapult yourself ahead in the race and then maybe rely on miasmas to stall out while you forge your final keys. Uh, Very cool deck, very low C deck, and I know I've seen her play this deck into Winds of Exchange metas, matchups with lots of big boards. Can make a big Sanctum board itself as well, so maybe the other houses don't pack a big creature base, but you'll see this deck and her playing it, navigating, having little creature control very well by either establishing a really big Sanctum board and kind of dominating the board there, or using that glorious few and then combination with some stall out tactics to forge the keys and kind of mitigate on both of those ways based on what she's able to do. Yeah.
Yeah. She does a tremendous job of making a deck like this feel like it has a lot more C than 6.3,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, if you had told me, like, without looking at this deck and DOK, like, what's the C in that deck, I would have probably guessed, like, 8 to 10.
Mm-hmm.
She just does such a good job of using that Sanctum board to fight strategically, but also, like, that threat of Glorious Few sometimes can cause opponents to discard creatures that they, otherwise might want to play.
Yeah, or they'll choose to fight instead of reaping, which is sort of an advantage for you as well. Maybe they'll trade off some creatures rather than doubling down and making more. I don't know. 2 for 1 yourself. Would you do that to kind of take a creature out, but also kind of get them back to board parity? Maybe. My brother used to say something a lot. I don't know how true it is anymore. I'm curious what your take is. He always used to say that he wanted to be the person who was presenting the threats to make the opponent need to fight into him rather than have him fighting into the opponent. And I think that still like largely holds true, but you can get to that point by fighting smarter in the first place, as opposed to kind of spreading yourself thin to kind of hit whatever comes out the gates. Yeah.
Yeah, no, for sure. That's still totally applicable. You want to be the one that's making the threats. This is like a Rector thing too. Like, Rector is the one that always wants to be like, you have to respond to me. Like, you have to do something to handle this Dusk Witch. Then you have to do something to handle the regrowth in Dusk Witch. Then you need to do something to handle like this big archives with the project ZYX out there. Like, it's always got threats out there.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's totally true in the game. And having a low C deck, you want to be presenting threats, and maybe you get away with low C by having a wide board and not just like fighting with that board, but if your opponent makes a wide board and you make a wide board with more threats to it, maybe they have to play a board wipe to kill their own creatures. Ways to try to goad that out there. Fight off just enough of their creatures so that they lose a little bit of tempo by like playing a Gateway to Dis or a Coward's End or something like that. So it's there's ways that you can get around the low C through your own creature count as well. We mentioned scaling Amber Control is a big one to me that stands out. But kind of just key control in general. Like, if you're able to keep taking them off check through other means, like maybe they're crushing deeps, or maybe there's miasmas like you talked about, like that's another way of like extending the game to the point where like you can get to forge your third key in time, even though like you end the game and maybe you win the game and they have 12 creatures on the board.
Mm-hmm. Totally. Totally. And, I flicked through kind of the decks that we had pulled up as examples for reference this evening. One thing that stands out to me too, and I'm surprised we haven't mentioned it yet, is that high efficiency can help you kind of mitigate low creature control on paper just by getting you to the creature control that you have more reliably and more quickly. So, Macro Ball's got what, 20? I don't know if maybe you have to get the engine going to fully realize the 20, but certainly that helps. Brickblade is a deck that I used to tout as the like most efficient non-logos deck, which is it's lost that
Yeah.
that crown, but certainly the 25 efficiency rating with the punks and the Kirby's and the Val and the Greys helps an awful lot. I mean, you've got a 6.2 on the C, and that's just 4 cards, right? That's an Axiom, so you got a board right, which is great. Nature's Call, soft C, but you can make some cool things happen with Punk and Nature's Call in combination. And then after that, it's a Molphin and Cauldron Boil, right? And that's like, I mean, we're stretching it if we're kind of putting Molten and Cauldron Boil on the list, and that's like
Yeah.
your 3 and 4 bullet points on the creature control report. So really, you've just got Axiom, Nature's Call, and then you're fighting, right? And so this is like, yeah,
Hmm.
get the
Yeah.
board established, make sure that you are kind of the dominant presence on board, and rely on the efficiency to kind of supercharge that plan. But yeah, I
Yeah.
do find
You
myself fighting an awful lot with this deck. Strategically, I like to
for sure.
think.
You mentioned yeah. We have some 5 power creatures, 6 power creatures in there. You got the Golden Spiral.
Yep.
Um, you mentioned Macro Bell. It's my Mass Mutation deck. It also just has 4 cards that provide creature control,
Yeah.
and there are 2 wipes, a Kurzap, and I guess you could call standardized testing a wipe in some ways, sometimes. And
Mhm.
then the other 2 creature control cards it has are Mark of Dis and Dino Beast. Now, obviously, with Mark of Dis, you're generally not hoping to kill a creature with that. You want the disruption more than you want the creature control, but like that's it. It's got a Dino Beast to exalt to deal 3. Um, this is an interesting one for me because it took me a very long time to figure out how to win with this deck, even though it's insanely sassy, really spicy. It's got triple Ethologica, triple Professor Torado, triple Infernus. It's got 10 mutants overall and a Vault Blessing. It's got 2 Resurgence. Like, it's got so many good tools. But at first, I could not win because I was like, man, like, I go up against like a couple big creatures and I don't have enough creature control and I can't kill them. And that was
Mhm.
it. And eventually I started to learn because of this deck how to use that Kurzap wisely, where it's like, yeah, my opponent might have like 6 creatures, but I'm going to use, like, for example, Causal Loop, and I'm just going to archive that Kurzap and save it for when they have 8 or 10 creatures, or save it for when they like unload a bunch of tokens at one time. Um, and as I started to learn how to more efficiently use the board wipe, I got better and better with this deck, and it became, you know, my absolute best deck that I owned through all the legacy sets. And it was because I just learned how to take advantage of, the Kurzap at the right time. Or one example you always like to talk about is like the Pika. Like the Pika could be a really big creature. This deck
Mhm.
also has standardized testing. So where I put the Pika could mean the standardized testing loses half its value. And you can't really afford to do that if it's like one of your 2 best creature control cards. You want to make sure you put the Pika somewhere where it's not going to get in your way. I also find the Dino Beast, ironically, being a little bit of creature control itself at a 5 power, is my highest power creature. Also, sometimes gets in the way of the standardized testing.
Huh.
So you have to play with that dynamic as well. But learning this stuff in a low C deck, I'm not saying that every deck with low C can become a great deck, but you have to really, use the tools that you're given and figure out how to most intelligently use those and get the most mileage out of them. And sometimes that's going to mean holding on to that Kurzap, even if your opponent's going to reap out with like 4 creatures.
Yeah, yeah, I definitely find myself like in Brickblade. It's so important to be ahead on board. If I've fallen behind, I need to make sure that that one axiom, comes out at the right moment so that I can swing myself into a dominant board position almost immediately after playing it. So yeah, don't not to be used lightly and likely to be held for sure. Um, right on. How
So those are 2 decks. Sorry, I
no,
was just
go
saying
for
these
it.
2 decks are pretty similar in that they do have board wipes, but that's almost all that they have. So there are certainly other examples of decks that don't even have a board wipe, and they just have like some random ping damage. How do you have any specific strategies for like most effectively using just like lots of low ping damage, like which creatures you target with it and when?
Mm. I think those are starting. I mean, now you're starting to get back into the territory of getting those smart fights in there. If you have a board wipe, you can be maybe a little bit less reliant on fights, though you're going to maybe use the fights to maximize your board wipe when it comes. Uh, if you've got maybe no wipe and you're just kind of relying on ping damage and fights solely as your board control. I mean, it's a lot of the same principles, though maybe that plays out a little bit differently. So I've played a lot of games with Peralta of Shadow Sea Arboretum, and it's got a larger number. It's got 10 on the C scale, as reported by Decks of Keyforge, but no wipe to speak of. And it starts off with double Cacophonous Riot, right? Like, I mean, yes, it is creature control of a sort. You can definitely use it to get some fights in very quickly or on repeat. But it's not like a whole story in terms of board control, right? So Cacophis Riot, placeholder, then Connect Home Transfer, and then maybe Nagu Yanni, and like really beyond that, you're looking to get some fights in. And so with this deck, I find myself using the placeholders, using the Nagu, maybe in combination, hoping to get lucky with the root axis, but not banking on it, and then using that in combination with some of the fights to trade up on fights and make sure that my opponent's board is maybe leaning towards mixed, and mine is leaning towards one-sided for better fights and better maximized turns. Yeah.
Yeah, this is a very much a small ball type creature control deck, and you have things that do a little bit of ping damage, like the placeholder. The Nagu Yane deals 4, which is pretty solid. Root Access randomly sometimes dealing 2, but like for example in this deck, the placeholder, right? Like if your opponent
Mm-hmm.
has a witch, say a 3-power witch out there, and you've got this placeholder which says play, move a creature to a flank of its controller's battle line and deal 2 to it. If it's not destroyed, repeat the preceding effect. So you could kill a 4-power, a 3-power witch with that. Um, but like, say they've got a couple of them, or you maybe there's a few things you want to handle. I think it's important to remember, and this is with any other type of ping damage as well. Like you, if you're gonna fight off that witch anyway, don't waste a single ping damage on it to just to put a damage on it.
Yeah.
Like if you know next turn I have to fight that creature off in this other house anyway, use that other ping damage wisely on something else, because you really need to maximize every little bit of damage you're going to make. And putting 2 damage on a Witch of the Eye that you're going to fight and kill next turn with a bigger creature anyway is kind of just wasting those pings. And so put them somewhere else if you can strategically take advantage of it. And I think it's a little goes against your gut. You're like, I want to put as much damage on that witch as I can, and make sure that I handle it as quickly as possible. But you have to be cognizant of what your deck's capable of doing and what your plan is as well for future turns.
Totally. I see that often. I can't tell you how often I see that. Folks will use a damage pip, throw one damage at your your high value creature, and then come back right the next turn and attack it for 2 power over its actual power, right? So you've kind of like could have spent that damage pip chipping away at something else, or knocking off a 1-power creature that maybe wasn't high value but was an extra body on board, knowing that you were going to come back for the witch the following turn, not being able to manage or take care of it right away. Absolutely. Yeah.
Do you often hold board wipes in low C decks, or like any other targeted creature control, like implosions maybe that can destroy a specific creature of your choice? You chain yourself with this stuff?
I'm gonna say it depends, but I will for sure. Yeah. Yeah. Do you
Yeah.
not?
I think holding cards, everyone always says, is like, as a beginner, if you're just learning the game, don't hold anything, just play everything.
Mm-hmm.
And then as you get better and better, you start to learn the situations where you should hold things. I do think there's lots of decks like this where you do want to strategically hold this kind of creature control, depending on the matchup. And the more you play it, the more you recognize what those situations are. Um, but definitely in low C decks, I like I mentioned with Macro Bell, I find myself holding board wipes quite a lot.
Totally. Brickblade, some of the few cards that I will hold are that Axiom or the Nature's Call, and the Nature's Call can get a lot of value, even not as C, but as a pseudo combo piece, right? Like it's so tempting to say, oh, okay, I'm going to bounce this Kirby and that Officer Gray and get an extra off-house play and an extra archive. But if you know your opponent's coming at you with a bunch of dinos and capture, that Nature's Call can be huge. Can be huge to have in a pinch. Especially in a situation where Axiom's not going to deal with um, like a Stenopius or something that's just got a ton of amber on it, right?
Mm. Yeah.
Yeah, totally, totally. OPI's another deck that I've been playing a lot recently. Comes in at 7, and by the way, too, yeah, you were saying that your kind of like internal cutoff point for considering a deck low C is like 6 or 7, like 6 or 7. You're like, oh, maybe this is low. I'm like, dude, like what are you talking about? If it's like, if
I
it's
saw you inked some decks here. Yeah, you inked some of these decks here with low C for this discussion tonight, and one of them had 10C. I was like, 10C, man, this is this is rich right here.
Oh,
I
oh,
think it comes
jeez.
from historically when I was playing like in the early FFG days. For whatever reason I felt I could never open decks with high C,
Hmm.
and maybe that's because Coda and AOA didn't have a ton, but like I always struggled with high creature control, especially when Worlds Collide came out, and I was like, man, I cannot compete with these dinos because I don't have any decks that have very much C. So it ended up just kind of being like, oh, I have a deck with 10C that's like almost my most. So 10C to me in that case was like, man, this is like tons of creature control compared to everything else I have. So maybe that's why I kind of have that definition of low C being as low as I do.
Wow. If I see single digit C, I'm like looking at it with suspicious eyes. And like under 12 is
Yeah.
already like, I don't know, no, we could probably do better. I think I think under 12 is when I start giving shifty eyes for sure. And
Hmm.
not that it's not unmanageable. It's going to definitely very much depend on the mix of the story, the mix of creatures, the mix of actual board control tools that are available. But I don't know, for whatever reason, like 10, 12 is my threshold of like, yeah, this is kind of like about middle of the road, and below that, it's feeling a little suspicious. Yeah,
Hmm. Yeah.
man.
12. I mean, 12 to me is like, oh, I said 10 was like living large. 12 is like, man, what else could you possibly ask for? 12 is like,
Jeez,
yeah.
six or
12 is
seven.
like
What are you
a
doing?
gateway and like three or four other cards with pings, and oh, it sounds luxurious.
Yeah, that's like normal, reasonable amounts of board control for our. Well, I mean, I guess this is a great question though too. Like, how do you feel about the importance of C of board control in today's Archon meta? Let's call it.
Um, I think it's fairly important, especially with tokens of change having just come out. There are decks in all kinds of sets that you really want creature control against. Tokens of change and winds of exchange, the two prominent ones. But there's a lot of Grim Reminders decks that everyone talks about Grim Reminders as like a combo set, but anything with like the Mars stuff, like two Doctor X's and two Rebels, like you really need creature control against that kind of stuff. And you need a lot of it. And there's a lot of Amber Skies decks as well that have multiple Doctor X's. And if you can't remove all the Doctor X's, you're in trouble. So I think for things like that, that you definitely want creature control in this meta.
Hmm.
Now, I think the meta, if we can call it a meta at this point, is so diverse with different sets and power levels and um, different things going on. Like you have like double red line decks, you have creature token spam decks, you have just regular crush decks, you have these auto encoder decks that can still archive their entire deck. Like there's so many different things that like if you bring a deck with no C or low C, it doesn't mean you're going to lose every game. Like it's still going to depend on the matchup that you get. But if you go to a vault tour, I do think you need a pretty decent amount of creature control to be able to compete and like get a top cut at a vault tour in Archon.
Yeah, like 6 or 7. See,
Eight,
yeah.
eight. Let's not be crazy. Eight would be fine. No.
8 would be fine.
Do
Wow.
you agree with that?
I think it's important right now for sure. All of the decks. I mean, with the exception of some Geistoid loop decks that are not going to more or less ignore the board. I think
Hmm.
you're going to need some creature control. I mean, Amber Skies decks I think can go very wide. Tokens of change, absolutely. Current reminders too. Like you had mentioned, the Mars shenanigans on board can be very problematic to deal with. And I mean, even with Macrobell, with Brickblade, if I'm seeing Dusk Witches on the other side or Xyloxophrexes, I'm sweating a little bit, right? You're sweating a little
Hmm.
bit, and I think you're gonna expect to see Doctor X's a decent amount now. Like it's not a thing you should be surprised to see. I think you could probably say, I might not see any Dusk Witches, but Doctor X's you're gonna very likely see. Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah.
Hmm.
All right. So there was another point I wanted to bring up about kind of like non-traditional C
Hmm.
or things that might give like a C score in the arc, but sometimes they can get more mileage than that C score represents. Um, and one of my favorite Kagi decks, Sketchy Knifedom, has a double whirlpool, and then outside of the double whirlpool, it's basically its only creature control is abandoned ship, tidal wave, and anomaly exploiter, and that's like pretty much it. But I find that the double whirlpool is like this non-traditional sea where it's like they're always giving me creatures, and I make sure that I give them creatures of a house that they can't use, right? Like one of the off houses. And so I've learned to use those cards in that deck as a means of creature control, even though the deck itself has like 7 or 8 C in it. And some other cards that I think come to mind for me, Quixelstone being probably the most prominent one.
Mm-hmm.
Quixelstone itself, if they don't have hard R, is like among the best C you can find. I don't know what its arc score is for C, but like that clearly stops an entire board except for tokens. Um, and another one that Not Tonight's been rocking lately that I really enjoyed was Edict of Nerotaurus, which is the
Mm-hmm.
Saurian artifact from Winds of Exchange that says during any player's turn, if a creature reaps, the next creature that's used that turn cannot reap. And then if a creature fights, the next creature that's used that turn cannot fight. So it forces them to go back and forth, fight, reap, fight, reap. And if you have no creatures on the board and they have 8 in a single house, they can only reap one time because they reap with one and they can't fight. And that's it. So it's a really interesting form of creature control, the Edict of Nerotaurus.
Oh, that's funny. I had never thought about the edict in a situation where you just kind of keep yourself with an empty board and limit the opponent to one reap a turn. That's really funny. That's really fun. I mean,
Yeah,
absent actions that can be used or omnis that can be used or what have you.
sure.
But
Yeah.
still, very cool.
Are there any other cards that come to mind for you as like this non-traditional creature control?
Hmm. Certainly, Quixel jumps to mind. Things like Barrister Joya come to mind as well. Anything that's
Hmm.
a little bit sticky and stops your opponent from using their creatures effectively. So yeah, Joya comes to mind. Uh, Dry the River sort of effects come to mind. Orb of Invidious. Um, yeah.
Yeah, Dry the River is one that I really have been trying to find a good Dry the River deck, a disruptive one. Because Dry the
Mm-hmm.
River to me is like not just creature control, but it's disruption. Where if they're wanting to reap, you try to make them take 3 chains every single turn and try to get that to eventually add up. It's I haven't quite been able to find a deck that can utilize Dry the River like to maximize that disruption, but totally agree that that's one that I think of too. This non-traditional C.
I have the deck for you. Quick draw. Double Dry the River.
Mm,
Ulfbert
mm-hmm.
Device.
Yep.
Fangtooth Cavern. And
Excellent.
decent amount of house cheating. The one downside, not a lot of
I
natural
know. I know what you're gonna
tide
say.
raisers. Yeah.
I knew you were gonna say it. I have a few like that as well, where it's like, oh, this is a really cool Dry the River deck. I'd love to play this, and it's 0 tide raisers, and you're like, well, so much for
Yeah.
that disruption.
Yeah. Yeah. Three tide raisers. Oof. Double biome discovery and all tied up. Not nothing,
No,
but
3 is fine. Three's not bad at all.
it's something. It's something. Yeah. I mean, yeah, you're
Uh,
9 chains ahead of your opponent on best of case. That's not bad. That's something. But with the device too, also very
oh,
cool.
that's an excellent one to bring up as non-traditional C.
Hmm.
That's a great card.
Yeah, you got to at least wait. You've got a cooldown turn after deploying the big board before you can go back and use it. And so, yeah, you talk about time walks from before. Yeah, go do something else for a turn, and then I'm going to, wipe your board, make you make 2 big boards before I actually use up my board wipe. Very cool. And you have options, a breather to get some fights in, mitigate that big board for a turn or two before there's an opportunity to use it. Yeah, very cool, non-traditional C. Ooh, row. Man, the Zencaster woes this evening. I think I may have one of us may have frozen. Oh dear. Let's see. Looks like we're still recording. I might stop the recording. Save it. Bank what we got. Although, oops, sorry folks. Hang in there. I don't know if I'm frozen or Quick Draw's frozen. Let's see who comes back. Hmm. Hmm. Hang in there, folks. Yeah, looking like quick draw froze. Oh dear. Oh dear. Well, I killed the recording. We'll see if it gets uploaded when he reconnects. And funky weather is on the Zencaster side. How about that? We're moving.
Yeah, I don't know what happened there. I seem to have lost everything that time.
No worries. We're gonna blame this on Zencaster. It's usually Zencaster's fault. I did stop the recording though, so that I could bank what we had. I may have just lost him again. Still there?
I'm still here now. I did cut out for a second. Yeah, it's
Cool.
been a funky night here with the internet. I don't know what's going on there.
You take a few weeks off, and then Zencaster is just like new phone. Who dis?
It's possible. It also could be my PC that I haven't used in a while either. So,
Pokey. Just
um,
just putting it through its paces, getting back to the lab.
yeah, just more work for the producer again. The only thing I did actually like hear a little bit of what you were talking about there, but the Alfred device is one that I mentioned. I love Alfred devices from creature control,
Ooh, one sec,
non-traditional
homie.
as well.
Let me
Yeah.
start the recording again.
Oh yeah. Okay.
It may kick you out. Hang tight, folks. Ooh, did that save? It looks like it did. Okay, starting the recording. Cool. And coming back around. Gosh, Orion, I've been feel like everybody I've been talking to lately is like, yeah, I went into a cave to read Wind and Truth, and like can finally emerge and start doing other things now. There's a lot of Cosmere fans out there coming out of the woodwork at the moment. Okay, well, I think it's recording once more. Very good.
Okay.
Third time's a
Well,
charm. Everything comes in
this
threes.
third time is maybe a charm, but I think we're nearing the end anyway.
Yeah.
I wanted to mention again the Ulfbert device as a shout out for the non-traditional C. Guadalupe, one of my favorite adaptive decks. Another one that has like 5.5 C or something like that. It has like a final analysis, a thin the herd, an inviting, and two techno babbles. That's basically it. But it has Ulfbert device, which I really love it as a way of this extra C from the techno babbles, like stunning the creatures that they're about to call the next turn. And then Ulfbert means they can't call the house of the creatures they just played. And so that's just another reason why that deck I think works well for adaptive, just because it's the low C and people aren't always as efficient with it, not really understanding how to take advantage of things like Ulfbert device, or maybe even some cases when to just not play the Ulfbert device, when it's kind of more creature control for your opponent than it is for you. That's a cool card too. There's a lot of things like that I think people can look at um, with a different lens to kind of see like maybe I can use this as a form of creature control rather than just looking for only board wipes or only high C decks.
Totally. My double Ulfburst. Dang, that's tough to say. My double Ulfbert device deck definitely leans on it heavily and relies on that reprieve. It also packs two Grand Alliance councils, so you're like, oh, it must be doing fine. Um, it can handle big boards decently well, but it struggles with witches, right? So loves having a little bit of a breather to deal with a witch and not have to answer it immediately. Which is the thing that you can struggle with for sure. You'd rather not burn your GAC every time there's a problematic creature on board.
Hmm.
But GAC's very cool too if you're just working to minimize, diversify their board and not let them get too heavy into one house, which is doubly punished by the device. But certainly GAC does a great job of that too.
Yeah, there was a time I think right when DT came out that I was a big believer that Grand Alliance Council was the best board wipe in the game.
It's up there. Gosh, what would you put ahead of it right now? I don't know. It's
I
pretty
mean,
good.
wins for sure.
Uh,
Um,
I mean,
You're
Okay.
you're not counting that as a board wipe. You're counting that as efficiency and recursion, right?
As a board wipe, I don't know if it's better than GAC. As a combo piece, it's much better than GAC, right? Yeah.
Yeah. There was a prophetic visions card that was spoiled. That's like it's
Mm-hmm.
just an objectively better gateway. I forget what it does, but it basically has a pip, destroys all creatures. Oh, you choose a number and you destroy all creatures with power. I think it's less or higher than that number. I forget what it is. But
Yep.
basically, it's like you get a pip, you don't take chains, and you can choose to wipe the entire board.
Right.
Like
Or
it's
or if
so
you have the
much better
one
than
big
Gateway.
dino, you keep the one big dino, or whatever. If you get, yeah,
Exactly.
it's
Yeah,
it's
I think it is a
interesting.
Saurian card, and I think it is lower. So it's like if Saurian in Prophetic Visions is big dinos again, then that's one of those types of board wipes that is just synergistic with what you're trying to do already. To get it's just gravy, like Kurzap is another one. As Mass Mutation has moved out of the meta a little bit, Kurzap gets even stronger because
Hmm.
if you're playing Mass Mutation with Kurzap, you probably have a lot of mutants, and if your opponent's not playing Mass Mutation, they might have two most, and that makes Kurzap a one-chain, single-sided board wipe in a lot of cases.
Yep. Yep.
Those kind of board wipes to me are among the best, I would say.
Yeah, it's up there. I do like a natural selection an awful lot. Especially well, I would say especially if your opponent is not playing around it well, but you could say that about pretty
Mhm.
much anything, right?
Unnatural is interesting. I definitely like Unnatural. It's a pip. There's no chains with it. And you leave three creatures on the board where you can choose which ones you want to keep and which ones your opponents you kill.
Yep.
I've been playing with a deck with triple unnatural selection in KTL, adaptive, and I found that there are times when you like if you can get a witch out there, just stay below four creatures and they can't kill it with the unnatural selection.
Yep.
So it has its limitations, but it creates these interesting situations where you can play better with or against it just by keeping a smaller board.
Sure. Sure. I mean, there's some value as a sort of rattlesnake type card. Your opponent's keeping to three creatures. I mean, it's doing a thing by being in your deck. Um, though, if it's your entire story for creature control, then yeah, it's got a hole for sure. So needs to be
Hmm.
supplemented. This is a thing you've got to like know and understand about your deck going in for sure. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Um, I don't know. I think maybe last point there. Gosh, I'm still.
Uh, your audio cut out. Yeah, it's gone. I was gonna say we might be pushing our luck with Zencaster tonight if we keep going. I can't hear you still. Do you want to refresh or you want me to? I don't think I can hear you still. I'll refresh now, just in case. How about now? Nope, got nothing. Yeah, Fox them all. Sorry, I don't know what's going on here.
Think maybe it just came back. Got anything? Nothing?
Nope, still nothing.
Mama.
Man, we didn't even get a sign off tonight. We can't fix this.
Let's see.
And you're back.
Yowza, yowza. Well,
Is it?
well.
Is this one of those cases where you didn't even do anything and you just starts working again?
I did things, not things that should have had any effect, pick things up, put things
Yeah.
down. Just kind of shuffled the dust around the desk. Let me get a recording up, and then we'll do our sign off, and
Okay.
that may be it. All right, starting up the old recording. Hopefully, we're still coming through on stream. All right, very good. Well, that's about probably as good a segue as any into our sponsor.
There we go.
Yeah. Uh, Folks, this episode of Bottom of the Beaker was brought to you by by a Future Booster Seat. Because why should kids have all the fun? Whether you're struggling to see over the table at a fancy dinner or just want a little extra height for optimal armrest access, Future Booster Seat has you covered. Ergonomically designed for grown-ups, this stylish, adjustable seat gives you the lift you deserve without the embarrassment of sitting on a stack of phone books. Stand tall, sit higher, and embrace the future of elevated seating with Future Booster Seat. Yes, indeed. Quick, do you ever feel like you could use a Future Booster Seat?
Uh, nope. I believe I've got a few inches on you in height. So, how about you? I
I
assume you're a big fan.
I wouldn't have said so before, but now I'm feeling like maybe I should get one. Nice.
Well, yeah, thank you to Future Booster Seat for supporting us, and hopefully, maybe they can start supporting Zencaster better as well.
Yeah, for real. Get those Zencaster bucks flowing. Uh, yeah, 100% would buy. I'm with you, Floximal. uh, Folks, I want to let you also know, too, that Bottom of the Beaker is recorded live on Wednesday evenings at 9:30 Eastern Time, right here at twitch.tv/sloppylabwork. You can find recordings of our past shows and other streams over at youtube.com. We are at sloppylabwork.com. We are at sloppylabwork over there. Yeah, keep it sloppy, folks. And for the very best content, 34, no, 57 times distilled and scraped from the bottom of the beaker. Search for that very phrase, bottom of the beaker, in your podcatcher of choice. And we'll be there just to see what happens. All that and more at sloppylabwork.com. And Quick Draw, got any words for the folks getting off at the final audio stuff?
Well, I think it should go without saying tonight, everybody please stay sloppy.
Yes, indeed. Stay sloppy. Whoo mama. Whoo mama. We got there, folks. We got there. It wasn't always pretty, but you know what? It never is. So
Wow. I don't know what happened with the Zencaster this evening. Man, thanks for sticking with us, Foximal. Appreciate your patience here and viewership. And I think we're screw it. We're gonna try a game. We'll see how it goes.
we'll see how
Right?
it goes. My goodness. Maybe if we're not like actively recording, it'll be all fine. Holy moly. It might be an
Yeah. Maybe
all-time
it's the recording.
all-time record. I don't know. Four?
It was definitely the most finicky Zencaster's ever been for us.
I think that's true. Bad
You
luck.
know it, Foxmall.
Bad luck,
Low C
Zengaster.
game, adaptive best of one. I have I played Quick Draw that radiates chaos on stream before?
On stream,
I feel
I don't know.
I feel like we have maybe in a hand and brain game. I don't remember. I
I
was probably gonna play that though, if that's cool.
That's cool. I know I've played it before. Hey, Zoc, welcome. Thanks for the stream. Thanks for the raid, Dataforge stream.
Whew.
Yo, how we
Oh my
doing?
goodness. Welcome Riku. Welcome Dinobot. Welcome Dataforge stream. Man, you guys missed the sloppy one this evening. Good timing on the raid. If it
Hmm.
was any earlier, you guys would be like, "What did we just get into?" You're all just in time for a game. Um,
Hmm.
hey, Riku, this time slot is permanently reserved for Bottom of the Beaker. So, yeah, I know you guys started first. How did your match go, Riku, Dataforge stream? Who won? How did it end?
Yeah, what's oh
My
we
favorite.
got to check out the VOD. I'm gonna mess up my spoilers for my morning watching here, you know?
Okay, all right. Well, um,
Oh,
don't look at
Riku,
the
not
don't look at the
holding
chat.
back. I'm ready
Yeah,
to let fire. Okay, well, it's the journey, not the destination. So I'm gonna be curious to see how it all unfolds.
awesome. All right. Well, we're gonna play an adaptive best of one now. So I'll let you choose your deck. I'll just fully disclose that I am playing Quick Draw 3 4 5 7 that radiates chaos.
Just making sure I come to the party appropriately attired to deal with this thing. Holy moly. Um, I mean, I'll just bring Peralta. I think that's the only deck I talked about this evening that's going to be close.
Uh, Brickblade, Brickblade's there.
Brickblade, is that a good adaptive deck? I mean,
Only one way to find out.
all right. Wow, it's been a long time since I've dusted off Brickblade. Um, Kagi approved active deck. Now you've whet our appetite. Uh, you've whet our appetite. Very curious what this deck is. Um,
So Quick Draw that radiates chaos is one that I actually have in my NKFL lineup this season,
nice.
and I learned today that I think that was a mistake. I did not play it. I have not played it in 2 matches yet. I didn't make this as an adaptive. Gosh darn it. Um, it's low C to me that like really gives me pause about ever choosing to play this in NKFL, and I haven't quite learned how to manage that low C in this one yet. Um, Maybe this game will teach me some lessons.
Okay. All right. We shall see. We shall see.
All right. So we've got Brickblade. We've got Quick Draw. Um, Very interesting.
Yeah.
Um, I
Hmm.
haven't played against Brickblade in a very long time.
It's been a little while.
Hmm.
Yeah, this is interesting. A little bit tricky.
Yeah, I'm not gonna. This is one of those matches where we're gonna choose and then we're gonna instantly regret it. Both of us are.
Mm-hmm. I could see it. I can also see, regardless of the bid being close or not, I can see a pretty long tail on outcomes
Hmm.
with one of us getting an early lead and then just running away with it. And
It's possible.
it's possible. Limping to the first tee over here. Wow. Am I
That's tough.
am I crazy right now? Yeah, we'll see.
I am too. Well, we're gonna play an Archon game.
We are gonna play an Archon game. Okay. Let's see what
Yeah.
happens. Good luck and have fun, good sir.
Yeah. Good luck. Have fun.
That's not a starting hand. Yeah, enjoy the drinking, Riku. Thanks for stopping in, my man.
Yeah, Riku. Have a good one. My man. I feel like most of the technical difficulties actually maybe on my end.
I'm blaming
Like
you
I don't know what's going on.
inwardly, just so you're
It's
aware.
fine. I'll take it. It's fine. My keyboard's not working now, so hopefully I don't need that.
Oofa doofa.
Um, yeah, we're gonna pitch that. This is much better. Yeah.
Hmm.
Hey, there we go. All right.
Okay, gonna toss out a Commander Chan. Oh, that is
Commander
just
Chan. Let's go.
that is just the saddest thing I've ever seen.
Your draw?
Yes. Oh, Happy New Year,
Mm,
Riku. Happy New Year indeed.
oh yeah. Uh,
Yeah, this is just the saddest. Hate to see it. Breaks your heart. Breaks your heart, guys. I mean, man. Ooh, may have disconnected back again. I don't know. Could be. We may have. Rut-row. Rut-row. Hopefully you can still hear me, folks. Maybe not. Quick draw cycle in. Ooh. Helichopper. Helichopper. With a Banshee suit. Hear me. Okay, well then I'll keep yapping at you and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I'm back now. It's got to be me with this internet. I'm not sure what's going on.
Well,
You can hear me now, right?
I can hear you now. We're back.
Okay.
So we're going Untamed. We've
Jeez
got a
Louise.
Deepwood Druid to do the healing, Rustnar, and then we'll play one of our two punks. Very sad. So terribly
Hmm.
sad.
What did you discard? Oh, you're punked. Yeah. I
Okay.
mean, you got rid of my Black Tempest. You got rid of my Against All Flags.
Yeah, I'm not unhappy about that for sure.
You made me haunted, so that's something.
Made you haunted. I'm a nice guy. Nice guy like that.
Well, I think I appreciate you keeping Poe's Pixie on a flank because that would have got really pesky here.
Ah, pesky pose. Sag indeed. Okay, well. Yeah, we're going to play this Kirby there.
Yep. I think that punked may be what you needed to establish the board first.
It was helpful. I wish I had the other one now. Like one slight change in the draw order there would have been delightful. But here we are. And what's your artifact situation over there? You got anything juicy? Anything that we're really wanted to hold on to?
What are artifacts? I don't know what you mean.
I don't know either.
This deck actually has none, which is interesting.
Funny stuff. Okay, well, we're going to do some reaps. Get a little reaps in there. Very good.
All right.
Yeah, pretty cool.
Capture some.
And an ethereal adapter. You may spend amber on this creature as over in your pool. Holy moly.
Yeah, hopefully that means you're fighting a lot right here.
I might have to. Yowza. Archives Against All Flags and Black Tempest. Okay, not bad. Okay, Starlines. It is 6-4, and you've got 11 on the chopper. We can move one off the chopper to shrink it a little bit, and it's an 8-0. Is that where we're at right now?
That's what it looks like.
Yeah, we'll get a fight in. And also fight with the Rustnar. You get to do some archiving. Sag, these things happen.
You had some good archives there too.
We're going to stop at 6. Stop at 6. Stop at 6. Diverse flanks, stop at 6. We'll see what that does.
We'll go Skyborn.
Mm-hmm.
Take the archive.
That's a beefy hand. Got some Geistoid cards gumming up that hand now. I like it.
Let's think of the right way to do this.
Black Tempest comes down, captures on itself. Lay comes down. Cool. Yep.
Forgot about that Molfin, so that's good.
Mm-hmm. Okay, interesting.
I'm glad that you already lost that city-state. That would be troublesome with the Axiom. It's a pretty good one-sided board wipe there, I must say.
Yeah, yeah. Can be good. Axiom City State combination can be really strong. All right, so we've played against all flags. We've still got a red line floating around. That's pretty sad. Mm-hmm. I think we're just going to keep pushing on star lines here. Making a really big Commander Chan, because why not? Seems pretty good. I kind of want to take care of the lay now while I can too. But do I want to tempt fate?
You know, the Earl of Hurl is a real pilot.
Yeah. There was like
Yeah,
an actual. It's
an
like
act.
a actual figure.
I mean, it's his trait. He's a human and a pilot.
Oh, I see. I thought you meant maybe it was like historical figure. That's funny.
He is now
I guess
in the
so.
Crucible. I just wanted to point out that this is an appropriate place to use the word pilot.
Totes. Oh man, I just bite the red line off. Probably feels real bad.
What's the worst that could happen?
Getting redlined feels pretty bad. Just one against all flags in there, right? Yep. Da da da. Oh, indecision. Hurts. Okay. Yeah, we'll fight. Here. We're going to take this against all flags on the nose. If you got it, good for you. The chances are decent. But and let's bounce those.
That's pretty good.
We'll see. We'll see if we get hit with against all flags here. How good it is.
Let's see if I care about key colors. I don't think this deck cares. No, it doesn't. How about that?
Nice.
Yellow key it is. And I'm going to take it all back.
Nice. Nice.
And I am also going to just forge.
Ooh, spicy. Very cool.
Yeah.
All right, so key for me, I'm I guess behind on keys, but I don't hate my board position to make sure you don't get that other freedom to be off, but otherwise we may be okay. We'll find out. Let's move some cards though. I am actually going to discard this one.
That's a shame.
Yeah.
You didn't want those chains?
Nah. And then we're going to put that one over there. Although that's terrible spot for it.
Well, I'm very happy about this because it gives me a chance to catch up a little bit and in here somewhere for that red line
Mm-hmm.
and against all flags.
Yeah, seems solid.
Tuck them both away. Put the doppelganger out there,
The
and
helichopper.
the
Nice.
chopper's back.
Pretty good. Pretty good. Um, yeah, we're just going to see if the board dominance can be the thing. Man, Auto Legionary belongs to all houses. Can it be used like it?
That's That's actually an old text. It did
Yeah.
receive an errata. I don't know if it specifically has versatile now, but it's been changed to say it may be used as if it belongs to the active house.
Okay, so for against all flags purposes, it is uh
Saurian.
Sorian, yeah, yeah. I
Yep.
I didn't. Did I reap too much there, Zoc? Oh, stopping at 6 or reap for 6. I have to go back and look at it. I think I don't have regrets, but I have to go back and look.
That Val
Oh,
is
instead of putting
not centered.
Sorian. Val's not centered, indeed.
Yeah, I was pretty happy that you went Saurian there, just to play some creatures.
Yeah, yeah. That makes sense. I was digging for a thing and
Hmm.
found it, and I'm reasonably happy about having found it. Um, we'll see if it matters.
Yeah.
But okay. Universal Translator, let's fight with you. And also with you. Reap. Stopping 5 seems real bad. May have been better off.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I can confirm that is very bad for you.
Mm-hmm.
That gives me the opportunity to play Eureka, and it doesn't matter what I archive.
Seems good.
Um, that's almost best case scenario for me.
Yeah.
Um, let's root access, see what we hit. Nothing. Oh, the tribute. Okay, so um,
Don't love the tribute getting hit. Will not lie.
yeah, I'm pretty happy that I got rid of one of those. Actually, that's for sure.
Sure.
Um, haven't seen the other one yet, so you probably have it.
Could be. I could be in check for key 3. I would also have the helichopper to deal with against all flags coming. Yeah, maybe you're right, Zoc. Could be right.
We're gonna kill something.
Nice.
Probably. Let's go with the versatile one, I think. That seems the safest. And a daughter. Get a big hand. Check for key 3.
Seems good.
Yeah, pretty pleased with that one.
Hmm. Hmm. Interesting.
I think those few turns that the one turn you played Saurian, and without gaining any amber, and then last turn just stopping to 5 really gave me a lot of tempo.
Yeah, no question. No question. Hmm.
Just gonna reap out, huh?
Just
Reap
gonna
9
reap
times.
out. Yeah. I fight. Okay.
Stop at 6, huh?
Stopping at 6.
And you only drew 1 card.
Yep.
So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You've got a Cauldron Boil. Does Cauldron Boil affect both players?
Yep. Yep. All creatures.
So that's a pip you're not gonna be playing. Looks like you've got lots of other untamed creatures in your hand.
Got a few. I got a few.
That's good for me. I'm gonna go logos here. I will not take the archive. I will steal 1. I will code monkey.
Mm-hmm.
I will articulated wren. Can't get the check, but I will draw an extra card.
Nice. Drawing cards is good.
Yeah, I don't envy your position here. Last turn was one of those examples that we gave in the show where you had a board of 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, essentially 9 creatures that you could use, and you ended up not using like 4 of them.
Mm-hmm. Hmm. It's not quite. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 8. Okay, that's not quite enough. Okay. Molfin
Gonna move some
trades
creatures, huh?
here. Fully heals.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right. It's not bad to get you the shuffle. It's what you needed.
Yeah, something. Something. I still don't. I don't know. We'll see. The against all flags and red line is awkward for sure. For
Mm-hmm.
sure.
Yeah, I would say so. So let's see here. One, two, three, four, five. I think that does it. That'd be funny if I did the math wrong, though, wouldn't it?
Oh, got a freedom to be. Nice.
Yeah, sure do. Bomberang and a freedom to be.
Nice. Good
There it
game.
is. GG. Yeah. Definitely think. Uh, um, I don't know. I mean, it's such a hard card to play around the red line. Gaining the tempo by like having you not reap out. I have the effervescent principle I was holding on to for a bit too, where like if you'd gone to 7 or 8 and it still wasn't enough for me um, to redline for the win, like I could have just EP'd. Um, are you still there? I think I might have lost your connection again.
Oh yeah, still here. Yeah. Oh, chat saying
Hmm.
no. Can't hear me? Maybe we lost quick draw. I could have held the second throw. It was greedy there. I was pushing for centering Val instead. Uh, damage? I don't know if the damage on the flank versus non-flank mattered. Bomberang's gonna hit it regardless, and prop dusting doesn't care about the damage. But there's probably, perhaps still a case to be made. Um,
Yeah. Uh, I just refreshed. I'm back. I heard you talking about Deepwood healing.
Yeah, Deepwood Healing did heal the did heal one Thero, not the other. I could have healed
Yeah.
both. They were saying it's true, and I was saying yeah,
I was glad you didn't. Yeah, I was paying attention to that.
yeah. No, I mean it's probably the right thing to do. I got greedy and try was pushing to center Val. If I got another turn
Mm,
and with Val centered, I was feeling okay. With a double tribute coming and Commander Chan soaking up the amber. But
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I understand why you had to go untamed there. Because I was just excited that you couldn't get back to the PEs or the tribute.
Mm-hmm.
So was the tribute on bottom?
One tribute I had in hand, I was holding it,
Okay.
and then the other one was on bottom that you hit with
Yeah.
the
The root
root
access.
access. Yep.
Yeah. Um, yeah, that's tough. Like I don't know. You probably didn't. You didn't see the in here somewhere coming to archive the red line again, did you?
Oh, I mean, it's in there. Figured you would get to it. I was not worried
Yeah.
about it per se. I was worried about it. It's not like, I mean, I guess let me phrase it this way: is there something you think I should have done differently to stop you from in here somewhere in red line rotation?
Um, just those two turns, I think, when I think I don't know, you and I were talking about this yesterday or 2 days ago with Not Tonight, like stopping at 6, to me, it's like, I don't know if that's the best way to play against Redline. Um, I definitely don't think you should have reaped the 13.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I thought you were going to stop at 11 because like at 10 or 11, I steal 5, right? And at 11, I would need more than the red line to actually take you off check.
Yep.
Um, and you ended up giving me just enough by going to 13 to let me freedom to be for the other key. And then that gave me like, and then I think the turn after that is when you gave me the tempo back, where like I think you just called sorry in that turn, and instead of going to check again with the Star Alliance, I think if you'd gone to check with the Star Alliance again, you'd have been in a much better situation.
Mm.
Because if I had gone Geistoid to archive the red line, then I could not have taken you off check.
If
So at that point, you'd have gotten to key 2.
you would not have been able to go Geistoid and take me off check. Yes.
Correct. Yeah.
Yes. But I'm also back a turn of my own tempo. Uh, I don't know.
So I think so. I could not handle your board, and obviously, um, you struggled with the red line. But I think if you get to key two, you're forcing me to have red line and freedom to be together in the same turn
Hmm.
because you could just like you had a big enough board that you could reap for like 8 a turn or something like that.
Sure.
Um, so I thought it was probably important for you to get to key two if you could, because then you're like playing that dance of like how high do I go for key two, giving me time to like find all my answers again.
Okay. I mean, yeah. I mean, I don't disagree with you. Key two is very important. I would have felt, I think, good overall in the game with my prospects if I had made key two, um, pushing for some of those checks instead of trying to like get to some of the other tools. I guess so. I mean, I was sitting there without any amber control, really trying to get to a tribute, and saying, yeah, if you make a check for key three, I have no ways to stop you until I get to that tribute, or you have creatures for my Theros to fight. So me moving those cards was looking at where you were at and saying, gosh, if he gets to a check for key three while I'm sitting here not moving cards, then I just lose.
Hmm. Yeah. What do you think about the early punctuated?
Uh, it was unfortunate that I had double punk. I was one of the reasons that I was happy or took Brickblade here was seeing that outside of the in here somewheres or the in here somewhere, you didn't have much in terms of targeted archiving. So I was
Hmm.
less worried about you sitting on a red line in hand. Um, like yeah, maybe you can set up the in here somewhere for a red line if they also don't get punked, but them both coming early, it was unfortunate. I didn't hate doing it. I think it was kind of the best option that I had. Um,
You didn't have a gray at the time, I assume.
I did not. I had, let's see, does
I
it
tell you what card I was most happy to see you pitch there was the city state interest.
City State Interest was is great to come later. So I discarded uh, Kirkar Punk City State. Kirkar Punk City State. Yeah, but like I'm
Yeah,
not holding double Punk City State
I know.
there,
That's
and
rough.
I'm probably not pitching one punk and holding another one from that position
And you
either.
mulliganed into that, right?
Yeah, mulligan into that,
Yeah,
and like
that's rough.
and like and like now I hold City State for the rest of the game.
I
I don't
know
know.
it sounds brutal, but like if you had a city state, it was probably over. You know what I mean? I don't think I had the burst. Like if you played a city state to capture six or seven, I can't kill the creatures, and I don't know if I had the burst to be able to keep up. So like
Yeah,
maybe
sure.
city state is something you could hold in this matchup.
I think Orion's got it right. I should have prioritized protecting the pose. I don't think I can hold the city state there. I
Oh,
mean, like I
hmm.
I didn't have a board yet. You know what I mean? Like sitting here, I'm like, yeah, if I have city state, I'm golden.
Hmm.
But like, do I get this board
Yeah,
if I'm chaining myself with
it's
city
true.
state from turn one? I don't know. Yeah.
You did a good job controlling the board. Like we talked about two OC decks, being the first to establish the board and then fighting and making sure that you keep it. Like that obviously snowballed for you here.
Mm,
Um, but you're right. I think maybe you couldn't necessarily count on that if I had established a board first.
mm, yeah, the pose is a good call. That uh,
That
punk got
yeah,
me punk
that
got me the
pose,
board.
man,
Yeah.
would have been nasty if that pose could stick.
Would have been nice. I definitely did not prioritize having it stick around. I think at the time I could have put it one off the flank, and it would have been. I don't remember if you had a fight to move it to the flank or not.
I don't think I don't think I did. I had a prop dusting, but I don't think that was the turn when I had a ready Skyborn creature on the board.
Yeah, and Zoc saying the punk got me into the board. I think I played two untamed creatures, and then the punk.
Hmm.
I don't remember if you had anything to speak of at the point either. At that point, either. I don't think so. It was pretty early. Um,
So I played, let's see, you played Chan, and then I played a Junk Restoration, Hella Chopper, and then you went immediately into Untamed, played the Druid, a Rustnar, and then a Punk, and then the punk got you the Molfen and the post pixies.
Right. And
So you could have put the Molfen on the flank.
yep. I will admit I saw the Molfen and was like, ooh, steel protection, and did not have the same
Mm.
thought for Pose.
It's that pose pixie. Like I'm telling you, the pose pixie. I read it too. Like I was like, wait a minute,
Yeah.
that needs to die. Like that
It,
card is. You don't think that that card ever survives, but like if it does, geez, oh man, that can really swing games.
it comes up big an awful lot. It's like surprising how often it's like this just like a car that flies under the radar, and then Rex plans.
It
Um,
always wrecks plans when you like play a card and you're like, wait a minute, what just happened? You
mhm.
know, like, and then you realize the post pixie was out there, and yeah, it sneaks up on you. You might say that
No,
it's elusive.
you might say it's elusive. Yeah, I'm gonna have to go back and look in because I think that well that was a mistake not protecting the pose. I could have put the Molfen on the flank and had the pose at least get a chance for protection. And I may have had I had a Saurian turn I think where I had a fight instead of a reap where getting to check and I had miscounted. Um, would have got me to check but left you with a creature, which would have been preferable.
Hmm.
And then I'll have to look at one of the other ones. Zaki was saying there was another one I should have raped with. Probably true. I have to go back and look at it. Um, I was maybe tunneling a little bit and getting to some of my amber control, worrying about you making checks that I couldn't stop. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah.
Would you bid differently? Would you choose differently?
I still don't hate Brickblade in this matchup.
Yeah, I don't either. Um,
Yeah.
I was really nervous as always, whenever we chose different decks. But it's also a case where I think you could have played Brickblade better than me, and I could probably play Quick Draw a little better than you maybe. And that familiarity, like in adaptive, I think definitely kicks in as well.
Yeah.
If we had swapped this, like I don't know what would have happened. It would have been, I think it would have been some weird stuff if we had swapped decks here.
Could have been weird. I mean, an early Tintadlin could have been kind of funky to mess with your archives. If like Punk hit
Hmm.
Redline
Yeah.
and In Here Summer, I think it would have been like almost immediate game over from that point too. Um,
Mm-hmm. That's true.
but there's a
Yeah.
lot of ifs, a lot of ifs.
That's Keyforge though.
That
Like
that is it is indeed, it is indeed. Yeah, funky, funky, funky. I don't think I've ever had a Chan Voltron before. I've seen the Kirby's, the Greys,
hmm.
but I don't think I've ever seen a Chan Voltron.
uh
Universal adaptive format. Yeah, right.
what is the difference between adaptive and reversal adaptive? Data Forge stream.
Honor, naturally. Honor.
Um Bring a deck, and if you win with your opponent's deck, then you get like an extra point.
Maybe like the potluck adaptive. Yeah, everybody brings a deck, shuffle them up, and then you go play. A little bit like sealed, but curated pool.
That's not adaptive then, is it?
And then you shuffle up and play adaptive games. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah, it might as well be sealed then, probably.
yeah, yeah. You get the benefit of a curated pool, but for it's sealed for
Hmm.
intents and purposes. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, bidding on the deck the opponent gets?
Ah, interesting.
Okay, tell me more. So if we're bidding on, I don't understand. How does that work? Do you start high? It's like start at 24. We both choose a deck to bid on, and then if it's my deck, I'll say, all right, I'll let you play that for 24.
I think
It's
it's the
just
same.
adaptive
Oh,
but
yeah,
confusing.
I think it's the same, but backwards. Why not? Backwards is fun. Mix it up. Yeah, for sure.
Hmm.
Well, quick draw. You get the point this week. You know,
All right.
it'd been a little while. I didn't
I
want to go too hard on you first time back. What could I say?
Sure. Yeah, I had a rough day of some matches today too. So,
Ah, jeez.
um, um, no points for my internet today though.
Yeah, who knows? Who knows who's to blame for that? I'm pointing the
I
finger of blame at Zencaster, but
Yeah, I feel like I'm 60% to blame. I don't know. 60-40 me and Zencaster.
well, it is what it is. Yes, it is. We got there.
It
We got
happens.
there. Yeah.
We did. Yeah. All right. Well, thanks for everybody for tuning in. Data Fort Stream, thanks again for the raid. I hope you guys had a good, fun NKFL game. And we'll be back same time next week.
See you around the lab, folks. Bye.